the Bear Down Buzz podcast. Myself, Eli, joining Joe and Isaac this week as we preview this week 3 matchup against the Indianapolis Colts at Lucas Oil Stadium. Fellas, before we really get into the breakdown of this matchup, we do have a laundry list of injuries to get to on both sides. So, Joe, I will let you kind of go through some of the highlights of these injury reports for the Chicago Bears.
Give me a minute. I'm pulling this up right now. I have it somewhere. Here it is. So, as of Thursday, the Bears had 4 players not practice. One was Keenan Allen with his heel injury. But we knew he wasn't going to be practicing the whole week. Kyrie Blasigane has a hand/knee injury. Zach Pickens re-injured his groin last Sunday, and then Mercedes Lewis had a rest day, which he usually gets a veteran rest day every week, so that's fine. As for limited participants in Thursday's practice, we had Tevin Jenkins with a thigh injury, Andrew Billings with a groin injury, Nate Davis with a groin injury, Travis Homer with a finger injury, Rome Odunze with his knee, Montez Sweat with an elbow, and Marcus Walker with a foot. And then the only full participant that we had that was previously injured was Karan Amagaji. Obviously, the biggest injuries on this list are Tevin, Keenan, Andrew Billings, Nate Davis, Rome, Montez, and DeMarcus Walker. I guess Kyrie Blasigane too, but I think we probably need Kyrie Blasigane back in the lineup just because last week we didn't have a good running game at all. I mean, even with Blasigane, we had trouble running the ball, but I feel like getting him back will definitely help us. But missing Tevin and Nate Davis with how bad this offensive line is play last week isn't good. We hope that both of them obviously play Saturday or Sunday, but we'll see. Yeah, that's the rundown. What sticks out to you guys?
Isaac, I'll give it to you. Your thoughts on this injury, this laundry list of injuries here.
Yeah, definitely a lot of injuries. Jeez, like it's already week 3. It's only week 3 and we really have like so many injuries. I'm looking through the list right now. Some that pop out to me is definitely Keenan Allen, not just consistently not practicing, and he's only really played 1 game for us. And I already see people like making fun of him because he has been kind of injury prone last couple of seasons, but hopefully he'll play. The other one I want to mention was Tevin Jenkins and Nate Davis, both being limited. I do think they'll end up playing on Sunday, but I feel like it might be an opportunity for someone else like Matt Pryor or Bill Murray to get a shot at the starting lineup. And I do think that if they were to be put in the starting lineup, they would take full advantage of it and really have a good game and get a lot of Bears fans riled up because they're going to be like, oh, maybe we should just stick with them instead of definitely Nate Davis. I know Tevin, when he's healthy, he's going to be on the field. Like that's not really a cause for concern. But with Nate Davis, a lot of fans are really upset, frustrated at him. And maybe to give someone else an opportunity might be the best case for the Bears, but we'll see. I wanted to ask you, Eli, what do you think about the injury report?
So I'm right there with you guys. I think the headliners are Keenan Allen, Tevin Jenkins, and Montez Sweat are the big ones. I do think it is promising to see Karan Amagaji healthy and a full participant in practice. I think that's kind of an underrated aspect of this injury report because you never know if, for God forbid, if one of Braxton or Darnell goes down, maybe he could slide in there and get some starting experience early on in the year. We don't want to wish that, obviously, but that's good to have some tackle depth there. I think one that kind of popped up for me that's kind of concerning is Andrew Billings, because we're going up against this Colts team and we'll kind of get in more into the game plan here that likely is going to want to run the ball. So Andrew Billings there up front has had a phenomenal start to the year. So he is only limited, but hopefully it doesn't progress any worse than that. And he's good to go on Sunday. But I thought Andrew Billings was one that stood out. And then Rome, I think, will be fine as he kind of just slowly recovers from this knee injury. But Sweat and Walker, I think, obviously, if Sweat can't go, that will be a big issue. But I think he will also be ready to go. And DeMarcus Walker is a great rotational piece for that defensive end room. But those are some of my headliners. Joe, I think you had something else that you wanted to mention with
Yeah.
this injury
I want to
report.
ask you guys real quickly, how worried are you about Keenan Allen these first, I guess, 3 weeks, really last week and this week, with that heel popping back up and him being hurt? Because like we obviously traded for him. There must have been a reason besides money that the Chargers were so okay with letting him go, and this had to be it. Like, do you think we overlooked this and hoped he would be healthy? Or do you think the Bears knew? Well, either way, the Bears traded for him. Either they knew about it or didn't. But do you think they knew about it and hoped he would just be healthy? Or do you think they didn't like understand the severity of the injury and just again thought he'd be good to go the whole year?
I'll start. I think the Bears knew what they were getting with Keenan Allen. They I mean trading a fourth round pick is kind of not the biggest draft capital, but at the same time it is pretty significant. With Allen, I'm pretty sure the Bears knew that he would be injured like here and there and stuff like that. The reason why I think the Bears traded for Keenan Allen is because they really want Caleb to have that kind of security blanket that Allen provides him. And even if Allen isn't playing the full 17 games this season, as long as he plays maybe half, it would really help Caleb. And I noticed, last week against the Texans, he struggled to really find his targets, Caleb. And with Keenan on the field, it just makes it so much easier for Caleb and the rest of the offense to really, you know, have a good game. So, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say maybe it's a 5 right now. It's concerning because it's early and he's already been injured. At the same time, I feel like I think he's like what, like 31, 32, and it's just something that it's unfortunate. I mean, we would really want him to be healthy the full season, but it's gonna be, I guess, as the season progresses, we're gonna really figure out how long and how many games Keenan's gonna play.
Yeah, I think this move was always made keeping in mind Keenan's age and injury history. Uh, the Chargers were obviously comfortable with letting him go, probably for that reason. But I do agree that Allen, this move was made to be that developmental safety spot for Caleb Williams to go to throughout the season. And you know, if you get 13 plus games out of this guy, I think that's a plus. But he is old and he does have an injury history. He's still a great receiver, don't get me wrong, but uh, he is somewhat of a contributor to this team when he's healthy. But it's always been more of a developmental piece for Caleb Williams in his first year to try to develop him as quickly as possible. So I'm kind of right there with you, Isaac, on my concern level is probably at a 5 or a 6. If he's not good to go this week, then he better play next week, or else my expectation, my concern level rather, will be a lot higher than it is this week. But for now, I'm just kind of taking it 1 week at a time. If he can go on Sunday, that would be great because this is the week that we really need to get it going on offense. But I'm not overly concerned. So we're talking about injuries. We haven't mentioned the laundry list for the Colts. So it was reported recently that DeForest Buckner, defensive tackle for the Colts, is going on IR. He won't be back for the Bears game. I believe it was last week they lost cornerback Juju Brents to injury, so he won't play. They won't have Samson Ebukam there at defensive end. And another big one, Laiatu Latu has not practiced all week for the Colts, the rookie defensive end there for the Colts. So if he can't go, that's a very weakened unit. And the Bears won't have to deal with much up front as they have through the first 2 weeks. So what are your guys' thoughts on some of these major injuries for the Colts? Joe, I'll start with you.
I mean, I it matches up very well for the Bears. I mean, it sucks to see always plays injured. I mean, DeForest Buckner, even though it's funny that Caleb doesn't really know his name, he called him I forget exactly what he called him, but it definitely was not DeForest Buckner in his press conference yesterday. Um, but yeah, it sucks. It's good for us that he's not playing because it really hurt our running game, even though the run defense hasn't been good even with Buckner, but our offensive line hasn't been good. So I feel like if Buckner was playing, he'd definitely get through a lot on this Bears front and cause a lot of problems. But the other players like Latu, uh, for him, it's not good to be injured this early because he obviously needs to be out there to develop. Obviously, we're not a Colts podcast, but still, when you're young, you got to develop. And if you're injured, you can't do that. So that's helpful for the Bears too. Uh, and then the other defensive end, Ebukam being out again. Uh, oh, this all is the Bears front who have looked bad over the past first two games. Yeah, they faced some really good interior guys in the first game than the edge rushers in the second game, but still, you'd still like to see them play better. Hopefully, Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones and just the whole line look a lot better this week against probably what's going to be a bunch of backups. And if they don't look better against backups, then we have a major, major issue. I know I said that already, but I mean, that's true. We just do. I'll toss it to you now, Isaac. What do you think about these injuries to the
Yeah.
Colts?
Yeah, I feel like the Bears always get kind of lucky. Every season I feel like someone's always like major that's out. Like Hopkins was limited last week. Now we're gonna have all these injuries with the Colts, and then especially the Rams coming up in week 4, they're gonna have a bunch of injuries. But I like what Joe mentioned, if the Bears offensive line can't handle this basically Colts backup defensive line, then it's gonna be a big problem. Like I know everyone's gonna be overreacting, panicking, and rightfully so because the Bears offensive line, I mean, they're pretty talented. I feel like we have like good guys up front, but I don't know if it's Chris Morgan, the Bears offensive line coach, that just isn't really developing them right, or putting together a good game plan for them. But what's also interesting to me is I kind of want to transition into something else. The Colts, PFF basically said that the Colts have the number one offensive line through 2 weeks in the NFL. And we all know that the Bears defensive line isn't really top tier. So I'm kind of interested to see the Colts offense against the Bears defense because I feel like the game plan is going to be let Anthony Richardson try to throw the ball and see what happens because he did have a couple interceptions last game and it wasn't pretty. He didn't really have the best of games, especially because I was keeping an eye on it. I have Anthony Richardson in one of my fantasy leagues, so it was kind of annoying to see him not have a good game against the Packers, but at the same time, we'll see. Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think is going to be like the ideal or the matchup to keep an eye on for the Bears Colts game? And I'll start with you, Eli.
Yeah, so just to kind of wrap up what we'll kind of see on the defensive front from the Colts, we're going to have blocking up front for the Bears. What we're going to be blocking, I guess, is the way to put it. Kwity Paye, Grover Stewart, Taven Bryan, and Tyquan Lewis. So, Kwity Paye is the big name there that most of us probably know. And then after that, I'll admit I'm not too familiar with the rest of those names. So
Grove Stewart's pretty good too.
okay, so Grover Stewart there, another name that some of us might know. And another interesting thing that I kind of wanted to add is the 2023, one of the Bears draft crushes, Adetomiwa Adebawore. There we go. He is also on this Colts team, probably more of a rotational piece. He's playing about 25% of the snaps through 2 weeks on this Colts squad. 1.5 sacks in his career. He hasn't had a great start to this year. I thought that was just a cool little tidbit to mention because I remember a lot of Bears fans were obsessed with him pre-draft in 2023. But overall, this matchup, it's going to start in the trenches as it is with every game. And I think this is one that the Bears match up well with and should kind of give this unit a lot more confidence going in to the rest of the season. So it will be interesting to see if we can capitalize off of that. And to kind of add to what you were mentioning, Isaac, with the grades there for the offensive line for the Colts, they have a pass block win rate of 74%, which ranks third in the National Football League, and a run block win rate of 77%, which is first. Those are per ESPN and PFF, which has given Anthony Richardson a time to throw of 3.1 seconds, which is a lot for a quarterback that hasn't really mastered the art of the check down yet. And another interesting thing that's been a topic of conversation throughout the first 2 weeks is these defenses playing two high safeties, and Richardson likes to go for the big play. So if we can force him to throw downfield while also trying to limit that run game, the Bears secondary should be in for a pretty big day. But those are a lot of the matchups and some of the stats there for the Colts offense. So I will toss it to you, Joe, kind of your thoughts on some matchups from this matchup.
Yeah, so I'll go with the Colts offense because that was what we've been talking about. I kind of I do think they're going to try to throw, but I think they're going to mainly try to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. So we got to stop that first and foremost. And the Bears, minus a couple plays the first week, they've done a pretty good job at stopping the run. They had obviously the 26-yard touchdown run to Tony Pollard in the first week that was not good, but they were also had most of their backup defensive line in at that point, and Booker was ran at that play, which he wasn't stopping the run at all in game one. So that's kind of why that touchdown happened. Other than that, they kept the Titans to they let 140 yards total up on to the Titans, which 82 of those came from Tony Pollard. But last week they did a really good job stopping Joe Mixon and literally every other running back they used. So Jonathan Taylor is a step above all those guys. So it's scary, but I think the Bears will be able to stop them or stop Taylor. You also have to worry about Richardson's legs, which is another dimension they haven't had to really face this year. I mean, Levis ran for 36 yards, but none of those were really design runs. And Stroud isn't really a runner; he's a passer. And so now you have to deal with read options from Richardson and Taylor, and both of those guys obviously are very explosive with their legs. So you got to watch that for that. In the passing game, though, the Colts' top receiver so far has been Alec Pierce, which is surprising because they just paid Pittman to be their top guy, and he's not been living up to expectations. He's had one drop, and he's not been on the same page with Richardson. Alec Pierce over 2 games has 2 touchdowns and close to 150 receiving yards. He caught that 70-yard bomb in the first game against the Texans for a touchdown, and then he had a touchdown last week against the Packers. My bad, I almost said the Steelers. But I think that we have to put. I think the best option is to put Jalen Johnson on him, which sounds weird because he's a deep threat, and you would think you would put it on Johnson on Pittman because Pittman is technically their number 1 receiver, but he's not. Like I said, he's not been playing like it. So I think you got to put Jalen Johnson on Alec Pierce, and hope that works out, and you can slow Pierce down, and then play physical with Pittman and Adonai Mitchell. He's gotten open for them. Richardson and him just haven't been on the same page. So you got to watch out for that too. But I think this Bears secondary matches up very, very well against their Colts receivers.
Yeah. So Isaac, any more thoughts on these matchups throughout this Colts game?
Not really, just besides the fact that I'm very intrigued on what's going to happen with the Bears offense versus the Colts defense. I feel like it's 2 units that are not really the best right now, and we'll see. I think that's going to determine basically who wins the game, is if the Colts defense can surprise us and have players that make impact plays during the game. and then vice versa. The Bears offense can really shock us and have that kind of resurgence, and everyone's gonna be like, "What? Where was this offense the first 2 weeks?" So we'll see what happens. I do want to ask you guys for your or your score prediction for the game. I'll start first. I think we're gonna end up winning 24-10. I think the defense is gonna have a really good game. They're gonna be able to contain the run, contain Anthony Richardson, and then the offense, I feel like is gonna start to find their groove. It's not gonna be picture perfect, but it's gonna be pretty, pretty good. So, what about you guys? What do you guys think?
So I'll start, and then Joe, I'll toss it to you afterward. 24-10 sounds like a pretty interesting one. I think this is the week that the Bears get it going on offense. 10 points. I feel like just from past Bears games where we think we're going to limit a team, it seems the teams that we don't think are going to score a lot on us are the ones that always often do. So I like 24 points for the Bears, but I'm going to stick with you on that. I'm going to go 24 Bears and Colts 19. I think it's one of those games to where the Colts score more points than they should. But this really is a week where we have to get this Bears run game going, and I think we'll be able to do that. And I stick by our decision that me and Joe had talked about in weeks prior to have 3 running backs active and to get Roschon Johnson involved, because we've all seen the potential that he has for this Bears run game. Khalil Herbert obviously has averaged 5 yards per carry, and pretty much every year of his career, the guy is just explosive, can run between the tackles. And this is the week to do it against a not as talented defensive front for the Colts that we've seen from the first 2 opponents through 2 weeks for this Bears squad. So get the run game going. I like 24 points, Isaac, but I think, again, this is just one of those weeks where the Colts squeak out a few more drives than they should, and the defense will shore up in the weeks to follow. But I've got 24-19 Bears. Joe, what is your score prediction for this matchup?
So I'll get to the score prediction in a second. I do want to talk a little bit more about that Bears running game against the Colts run defense. So the Colts run defense hasn't been very good. They're the worst in the league right now. Last week, in the first quarter against the Packers, they allowed 164 rushing yards, and everyone in their mother knew that the Packers were going to be running the ball with Malik Willis, and yet they still let up that many yards, and that was with Buckner, who we mentioned earlier, is hurt. So if the Bears cannot pound the rock with either, I mean, they're going to use Swift, obviously, because they paid him, but with either Swift and Herbert or Swift and Roschon or Swift and Valus, any of those 3 guys, any of those 2 combinations, if they cannot run the ball with them, it's a huge problem. But like you said, and like I just said, I think they are going to be able to run the ball this week. So I do think that 24 points is a little bit high for an offense that hasn't been doing all that well. I do think they're going to get it going, but I don't think they're going to score 24. I'll go 17 to 17-10, 17-10. I was going to say 17-13, but I think the Bears will hold them to 10 points. I think it'll be a touchdown game with the Bears offense looking a ton better and the Bears defense still dominating. But yeah, just get the run game going, please. If they can't get the run game going this week, then I don't know if it's ever going to happen, which isn't a good thing this year because we need Caleb to develop. And I know we all want to see Caleb throw, but you can't throw if you can't run. You need to run the ball to be able to throw the ball. And that's why Caleb's been struggling the past 2 weeks because they can't run. And everyone knows they're going to throw it. And you just play too high and you pick the ball off and stop deep shots. If you get the run game going, you got to play one high. You got to bring a safety down into the box, which opens up the deep part of the field for you to hit deep shots to DJ Moore or Rome Odunze or Cole Kmet or whoever you want to throw the ball to. You got to do that, though. Also, I'll add this last part. I know it got a little better last week, but please play Cole Kmet a lot more than you play Jalen Everett. You need to do that because Everett, he's okay, but he's just not better than Cole Kmet. You got to play Cole Kmet, please. He could block. I know he had a bad game blocking last week. I'm confident that he'll bounce back this week. He could catch, he could score, like he can do everything. Just play him more, please. Also, use big formations to run the ball with Mercedes Lewis. We brought him back for a reason, and it's because he can block. He's 40 years old. He can't really run tight end routes anymore, but he can block. Please put him on the field and block with him. He might be better than some of our linemen, which is scary to say because he's tight end, but he's really good at blocking. So please use Mercedes Lewis. That's my rant. But yes, 17-10 Bears win.
17-10 for Joe. And if I'm going to break down this wish list that we have for week 3, we're going to say, Shane Waldron, use your running backs the way you should. Get this run game going. Let's see some consistency up front against a weaker defensive front from this Colts squad. Let's get Cole Kmet involved. I think we can all three agree that that's what we want to see from this Bears offense this week. But yeah, I think this week is really just a get right game for the Bears. As long as we win, I think we can all agree that the score doesn't matter. Let's see an offensive performance from this Bears squad that can give us hope moving forward against some weaker opponents that we'll get into in weeks following this episode against the Rams and Panthers. But this is the week for the Bears offense to kind of show us life and show us that it was just an early season thing against two pretty good defenses. But do you guys have any other thoughts offensively, defensively, anything matchup wise for this game against the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing with the running game. I really hope that Waldron mixes it up and not make Swift the workhorse back, because I think, you both can agree with me that Swift is not that 3-down back that Waldron is trying to make him. And just to give Roshan more opportunities, I mean, if his highlight of the game last game was getting punched on the sideline, that's not a good thing. So I really want to see more diversity in the backfield, have different guys have opportunities, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I don't want to see Homer in there more than Roshan or Herbert for sure. So hopefully we can see that, later in the game.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. Hopefully we'll be back for a victory Tuesday, so to speak, for this Bears matchup against the Colts, reviewing that on Tuesday. But from all of us here at the Bear Down Buzz podcast, let's go Bears and let's get a victory. We'll see you on Tuesday of next week here on the Bear Down Buzz podcast.